Hello students, welcome to Turito live classes. Myself A. Swagat. Today we are going to learn about a new topic that is in detail about photosynthesis. So, before doing that we will be looking into the topics what we have already dealt. Here we are going to look into this where these are actually learning objectives. Starting with that, we see we have a set of objectives prepared for you and we will be preparing them in a while. So, you see that nutrition. So, this is one of the important objective for today's discussion, wherein we see that we will understand what is nutrition, which includes ingestion, how an organism is ingesting the food. Then we will look into generation of energy, how the very same nutrients taken by the organism would be used to generate energy, following by utilization of energy. Secondly, we will look into the classification of nutrition. So, as you know, you have been learning about it since quite a long time. So, when you see here classification of nutrition involves, by now you have known about autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. So, this we will be using it, and then we will look into the detailed labeled structure of chloroplast, where we will understand the different labelings, different parts of the organelle chloroplast, and then we will proceed further to understand the various pigments present in the chloroplast, which actually aid in trapping the light energy in order to proceed the process of photosynthesis. Then we will be looking into the various steps involved in photosynthesis process. Then finally, we will look into those factors which affect the process of photosynthesis. So, let us move forward. We see here previously we dealt various discussions which held all about life processes. So, it was given to us previously that even if we are doing nothing, even if you are sitting idle, even if you are doing something, even if you are like sleeping, whatever may be the function you are doing, your body has to maintain its regular activities. So, for those reasons we understood about the life process. So, it is certainly done differently in different organisms, but here we see there are different life processes seen by us, starting with this movement, reproduction, sensitivity and growth, respiration, excretion and nutrition. So, collectively we called it as Mrs. Gren. So, we were trying to understand this lady, that is Mrs. Gren. So, this was all done in the previous session, and let us look into some more details what we have already dealt in the previous session. So, you see here, starting here we see all the organisms exhibit movement. So, that is why all organisms move their body from big movements like a jump and to a small movements like a wink. So, I am standing here and I was giving you an example in the previous session by showing you myself. I am standing here, I am trying to explain you something, moving my hands, moving my head, I am speaking, my eyes are blinking. This is what the movement I am giving you just by standing here. The other sort of movement what I wanted to show you previously and I want to show you now even is I can able to walk from here to here. This is also known as movement, but there is a lot of difference what I have shown the movement standing there and by walking here. So, that brings out a lot of difference. So, when I am moving from here to there, it is actually showing us about locomotion. Okay, that was dealt, and we saw all living organisms reproduce. So, this makes us clearly understand that reproduction process is actually the key function which continues life on earth. Without that you cannot expect life to exist on earth. And then we saw all the living things are sensitive, they are very sensitive. Of course, living beings are sensitive. Here we saw that whenever they are in their respective surroundings, they will understand the environment by their respective senses. That is why we saw they have their own senses to understand the environment. So, how do you and me understand the environment? We use our senses like see, hearing, taste, touch and smell. So, about this detail, about the sense organs we learn at very early age, right. So, that is what it is done. Then we see we all exhibit growth. You being children, you will exhibit growth much at a faster rate than us, because we have already grown up, we are now in adulthood. So, you are just in your teens or about to enter your teens. So, you will see that you will be actually having a faster rate of growth, just like you and me. Several other organisms exhibit growth, increase in height, increase in girth, or not only that, in the case of the matured organisms, they exhibit growth by aging. So, aging itself is one of the sign of growth. Then we saw all the living beings respire. Nutrition is one thing what we know. Apart from that, all living beings respire. So, they both contribute for the energy generation process. Mainly it is the process of respiration. It is a chemical reaction where we see that it will be actually helping it to generate energy. Then we followed all living beings needed to get rid of waste which is generated in the body. So, waste in the body, as such we consume food, there are so many biochemical reactions occurring in the body. Apart from that, just by maintaining the body itself generates so many components. So, part of them are required, that will be utilized by the body, part of them are not required, that will not be utilized by the body, and there is no point in for them to stay in the body. So, we consider them as waste and that should be given out of the body, that is what is excretion. So, I hope you understood, children. These were the topics what we have already dealt, and now in the upcoming session here we would start with a specific topic, that is nutrition. So, what is your understanding about nutrition? What do you know about nutrition? Can you drop in your chat boxes, please? Okay. Now, okay, so some of you are already dropping in the details, that is correct. So, it is quite simple to understand that nutrition is one such thing where it is something deals with the food, consumption of food. Okay. What else is understood here? Here not only consumption of food, yes, so some of you are already dropping again and again, that is generation of energy, right, that is also important. So, between food and generation of energy we need to understand something. Food is available in the environment, that is as a source of the food, and we see that food when it is consumed, one has to understand in the discussion of nutrition how the food is consumed. Right, how the food is being consumed is a big question. So, one has to understand how does it happens. Then the second thing comes, what happens to that food in the body. So, you get food from a source and you have your own way of consumption of food, and when you consume the food, what happens in your body, and then so how it is assimilated. These are the three questions. If you try to answer, you will understand what is nutrition. That is what we are going to do it now. So, hopefully I would like to continue this. How the food is consumed, that is first thing, which is nothing but so it is saying about how the ingestion is done. Okay. Now, then what happens to that ingested food? The 1, 2, 3, right. So, again I would like to write here the first one answer states that ingestion, how an organism is consuming the food. There you can understand that you, me and some other organisms which look more or less like us, we all consume the food in the same way, like using your hands, that is one way. Okay. So, that is something entirely different what I am speaking right now about here. So, what I am trying to say is, are we making our own foods? No, certainly not. I see you, many of you dropping the answers. Yes, so of course you are right, plants are making the food, all those photosynthetic organisms are making their food, correct. Now, how the food is taken in is something different, that is we are taking the food which is readily available. When it comes to photosynthesis, they make it for themselves, they do not depend on someone else's food, okay? That is how it is. So, there is one thing is about ingestion. Second thing what you try to understand is, what happens to your ingested food? Well, when you try to ingest food, generates energy, ingested food generates energy, okay. Thirdly, you know, that energy what you have generated is assimilated. In other words, generated energy is to be used by the body, how it is used is more important. So, that differs for different organisms. This is in short about nutrition. I do not want to go into much details of it, because we have already learned this in your lower classes. That is the reason why I was explaining this in this manner. Now, I hope you understood in short all about nutrition. I would like to show you the classification of nutrition in this format. So, this gives a clear understanding of what our nutrition is all about and how it is classified. So, our nutrition is basically classified into two types: autotrophic nutrition, right, and second one you see that is heterotrophic nutrition. So, there are so many types in autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition also, but we are confining ourselves with autotrophic nutrition and photoautotrophic nutrition and chemoautotrophic nutrition. So, can anyone among you tell me why we are only trying to understand these two? What is the reason behind it? Yes, so it is quite simple. So, the answer for that question is very simple, that is nothing but the topic of today's discussion, that is photosynthesis. So, you see photoautotrophic nutrition. So, here what happens? Photo refers to light, okay, and auto means self, trophos is the root word. If you remember in class 7th we learnt it. Trophos is something to do with nourishment. So, photo is light, auto means self, trophos or trophic means nourishment. This is what is, with the usage of light, the organism is able to make its own food. So, that is what is these organisms they do. Photoautotrophic nutrition organisms perform the process of photosynthesis. With the use of light, they synthesize something for themselves. When it comes to chemoautotrophic nutrition, I think by now it is clear to you. Chemo is referring to chemicals, okay. Chemo refers to chemicals, autotroph, auto means self and trophic is nutrition. So, using the taking the use of chemicals, they generate food for themselves, they are certainly not dependent on light. So, heterotrophic nutrition you know very well, that is you and me and various other omnivores, carnivores and herbivores come into that picture, where they cannot synthesize their food and they consume the food which is readily available. That is what happens. So, this is the classification for today what we have to understand. Let us move forward and see photosynthesis. So, you can tell me what is photosynthesis? Yes, it is quite simple. So, you have been learning this, it is nothing new to you, right. it is a method of food production in photoautotrophic organism, in where we see this method in photoautotrophic organisms. Photoautotrophic organisms. So, you see photo means light, synthesis is to make something. So, it is quite simple, and this is one such diagram which you have been coming across since quite a long time. So, here, so photosynthesis is quite simple. So, as name suggests, it is having light energy, that is the source of the light energy, and that light energy is converted in this body of the plant into chemical energy, right. And you see that chlorophyll is needed for photosynthesis, right, and that chlorophyll is already available inside the plant. So, being one such raw material, it is needed in order to trap the light energy, chlorophyll is needed, and that is already present in the plant. So, plant makes it. Okay. Next, we need carbon dioxide, which is available in the atmosphere. Okay. You are there, I am there, okay, and there are many various other organisms which give out carbon dioxide. So, that is where you see that they take up the carbon dioxide here and they use water, okay. Of course, mineral are used, and ultimately they perform the process of photosynthesis. In order to produce glucose, it is given out, and at the same time the importance here is much given to glucose. So, that is the main product. So, this is the main product. When it comes to oxygen, of course, in the process of photosynthesis we see that is given out, this being given out. So, this is a byproduct, and we and several other organisms like us, they are dependent on this byproduct released by the plants or photoautotrophic organisms. Hope you understood that link. Yes, did you? Okay. So, this is in short about photosynthesis. Okay, some of you are asking what is NPK given here. Good question. So, yeah, you see here NPK here it is given about the new minerals. Okay. So, these are basically nutrients, and the source of the nutrients you see it is from the soil. Source of the nutrients is soil. Well, N, P and K, these are some of the minerals needed by the plant in very large quantities. So, N stands for nitrogen, okay. P stands for phosphorus and K stands for potassium, right. Next topic of understanding is within the same classification, that was chemoautotrophic nutrition. So, we will now understand what is chemosynthesis using this particular image. So, this is all about chemosynthesis. Okay. Can anyone guess like what is this all about? Okay, not a problem, and some of you are guessing it correctly, but okay, yeah, it is not volcano, but more or less linked to volcano. You are right, you are right. I see you are dropping some of the responses, is more or less linked to that. So, it is a sea floor, okay, bottom of the sea, and there you see there is given as a sea mount, that is on the floor of the sea. There is a kind of a mountain arranged over there because of the tectonic plate movement and giving out of the lava from the second most layer of the earth. You see that is a mount which is formed, and that is on the sea floor. Okay. Now, you see it is mentioned here as hydrothermal vent. Now, let us have an understanding there, what is that hydrothermal vent here. Okay. Now, if you observe carefully, this is a sea floor and there is a mountain like structure available, and from where you see some bubbles are coming out. When bubbles are coming out, what is a sign given there, like what we can make from that? Absolutely. So, like you mentioned, gas is given out, right, gas is given out. So, there is a C mount and that is giving out some sort of gas is commonly known as hydrothermal vent. Okay. So, that is what it is commonly known as. It is common in most of the oceans of the earth. Now, here what happens, because it is the sea floor, one thing you have to understand, can you even guess the temperature at the sea floor? Okay, I see so many responses. Okay, some of you are saying 6 degrees Celsius, some of you are saying 10 degrees Celsius, and because of this some of you are saying it is very high, more than 100, I understand. Okay, okay, I see your responses. So, because it is the sea floor, excuse me children, okay, yeah, I am fine. So, because of the sea floor, one has to understand the maximum temperature usually present at the sea floor is 4 degrees Celsius. That is the maximum temperature we find here. Okay. Now, at that temperature, what if the cold water enters this open structure, okay, and inside which we have lava. Okay. So, there happens an exchange of this minerals present in the cold water and the minerals coming out from the lava. So, it comes out in the form of gas and it smokes. So, these hydrothermal vents are of two types. Black smokers and white smokers. So, you must be thinking even in nature there are smokers. So, yeah, so here black smokers and white smokers. So, that is named after the type of gas they released by the hydrothermal vents. Okay. Usually, if it is a black smoker, it gives out H2S, and if it is a white smoker, it gives out ZNS. Hydrogen sulfide, which is mentioned here, okay, the white smoker gives zinc sulfide. That is one thing apart. So, you understood about the temperature at the sea floor and the the hydrothermal vent, and everything is fine. Now, there are various organisms living around this area. Let me tell you, even though if it is sea floor, at this region, no, so many organisms live. And let me tell you one more thing, if you want to find out the temperature here, at this region the temperature is so high, very very high, because it is with the lava what we are dealing with, right. So, can you guess what is the temperature over there? Okay, okay, that quite close to my guess. Okay, correct. So, we will find here the temperature up to around for 350 degrees Celsius to 450 degrees Celsius. So, it is just, I am speaking about the temperature in just this particular region only, just here at the brim, because it is like it is a lava we are dealing with. The cold water goes inside, immediately it boils out and comes out along with some other minerals that gives us some sort of gases. So, that is quite simple. Now, the real thing what you are supposed to understand is here, that is, you see there are so many organisms living here, and one such organism are mussels. Let me name it, by the way. The name of it is okay, just a moment, I forget. Yeah, I got it. So, that is the name here, C. riftia. It would look like this. This is how it would look like. Inside this shell, this is a big shell it is having, and some smooth structures come out of that shell. Shell is having a tube like structure. Now, inside the tube like structure what happens? We will see that there are some bacteria living inside this shell like structure. Now, we have water available because it is sea abundantly available, and there is dissolved carbon dioxide available. So, we have no problem with that source. Okay. So, we need carbon dioxide, we need water, and of course, at the same time you see that we have the required hydrogen gas, hydrogen sulfide. So, all these three are combined in those bacteria which are living inside this tube like structure. Using these three chemicals, they prepare their own food, that is denoted here as sugars. Because they are using only chemicals to generate their nutrition, so this process is known as chemosynthesis. Hope you understood this one clearly, right. Now, let us move forward, and if you have any questions, please do drop in the chat box, that would be answered. So, this is what is all about chemosynthesis. Next, let us move forward and we will see that the structure of the chloroplast. So, this particular structure you are looking here, and this structure is nothing new to you, as you have been learning this particular structure since quite a long time. You are having the cellular organelles discussion from grade 8th, sometimes in grade 7th in some of the boards, and you might be also have a detailed understanding, had a detailed understanding in class 9th also. Now, let us look it back again and look at the labelings what we have, and let us understand. So, here you see there is a big structure on the screen you see here. It is having two membrane, one is outer membrane, the another membrane is inner membrane. So, these two membranes have a specific gap. Okay. So, that gap is known as intermembrane space. Okay. So, this is the structure where inside which actually the light trapping pigments what we have learnt, that would be trapping the light and performing the process of photosynthesis. Here if you observe, it is having so many components within itself, right. So, if it has to take care of those components or make sure they are available intact within it, we have to understand that there is something called stroma, which is actually kind of a liquid like substance, okay, more or less like a liquid like substance, into which all these parts what you see they are labeled, all these parts, the components of the chloroplast are suspended in that. Okay. Now, if you observe carefully, we have a thylakoid available. So, that is one coin like structure is here, that is known as thylakoid, and there are different coin like structures you see they are one over the other, they are arranged as if they are making a pile, right, pile of coins you see, it is resembling like that. So, inside the thylakoid it has space again, empty space, okay, some opening, because it needs to perform the various reactions, it happens inside it. Okay. Now, if you observe carefully, it is actually the thylakoid space. So, that space is a thylakoid space. Okay. So, this whole stack what you are looking at is actually the granum. So, that whole stack is known as the granum. Okay. Apart from that, if you observe carefully, you see a starch granule, you see its own DNA and the ribosomes available along with the lipid droplet. Of course, the lamella. Lamella is nothing but the layer over its covering, that is the over the thylakoid. So, these are the structure and the components of the chloroplast. Okay. This is the structure and the component of the chloroplast, right. So, hope you refreshed yourself excuse me. So, if you refreshed yourself with this particular structure, okay, let us move forward in understanding the light trapping pigments. Yeah. So, you see that. So, here if you observe, there are mainly two types of light trapping pigments. One is chlorophyll, another is carotenoid pigments. You might have certainly heard about chlorophyll, but you rarely might have gone through this carotenoid, okay, some of you, but this was still there in class 9th if you remember, it was having these components were already given in there. Okay. So, these two are essentially the types of chlorophyll found in the plants, which I am going to show you now. So, one is of this one, that is chlorophyll A. Okay. It is a universal pigment found in most of the plants. Almost all green plants you see around yourself will have this particular chlorophyll with the chemical formula C55H72 MgN4O5. So, I have to chlorophyll B, if you observe, this is mostly found in green algae and some of the higher plants. Higher plants means which have the high end tissues and the mechanisms for their bodily functions. So, if you observe here, this is the chemical formula of the chlorophyll B, C55H70 and MgN4O6. So, if you observe carefully children between these two, I have marked the differences between the chemical formulae. So, make sure that while writing the chemical formula you are not confused. So, this is what the main components we see in the chlorophyll, in the structure of the chloroplast, helps in photosynthesis. We were showing you about the carotenoids. So, that is actually given with the carotenoid is expressing itself in different colors, that is brown, red, yellow and orange. So, this color exhibition is done by the specialized lipids. So, they are more or less linked to fat molecules. So, they are lipids here. Okay. This strongly, most of the times they actually trap the light within the range of blue to violet. What I am referring here, this range is from the spectrum. That 7 band of spectrum comes out, when it rains we see the rainbow. Rainbow is having different colors, isn't it? Vibgyor, violet, indigo, blue, green, red, orange. Okay, that sequence what I am speaking about. Within that bands of lights, it is mainly involved in trapping blue to violet. Blue to violet, there lies a range of light, and that light is absorbed by carotenoids, helping to process of photosynthesis. Now, you must be wondering, all these years we learnt about chlorophyll being the light trapping pigment, but you come here and say that carotenoids are doing their function. Now, that is a trick here. You have to understand something, children, as carotenoids are shield pigments. So, why they are known as shield pigments? Any guesses? And they avoid photo bleaching, that is what it is given here. So, fine, keep this one aside for a while. Let me tell you something now. In our houses, okay, we have the power source given by our electricity board. The respective electricity boards gives us the power and we pay the bill monthly. Fine. Now, what if the power is cut off for some point of time? What do? Correct. Based on my question, you have given me the answer correctly. Either you use a generator or you wait for the power, certainly, okay, or what else you can do? You would use an inverter, that is a battery. Okay. So, even in plants, consider the chlorophyll as the power source, the main power source which comes from the electricity board. Let us think like that, it is an analogy, and consider this carotenoid being the generator or the battery backup. Okay. So, what happens here is, you cannot expect all the light trapping function should be done by the chlorophyll, but you will see that if it is doing all such functions, it will be denatured. That means, it will be losing its nature. That means, chlorophylls which are present in the plant might be losing their nature, and if they lose their nature, then they cannot trap the light. So, it is not always the chlorophyll which traps the light. So, here if you observe, along with chlorophyll, carotenoids are also present here, and they have the ability to trap the sunlight and give that trapped sunlight energy, the trapped sunlight's energy to the chlorophyll. So, carotenoids, they are known as shield pigments because they absorb the light from the blue and violet range, they convert into the energy which is required for photosynthesis, they give it to chlorophyll, and then that is how they avoid photo bleaching. Do you know photo bleaching? Okay. I see many of you are saying no, and the matter of the fact is you know it actually. Okay. I will tell you how you know that. Photo bleaching, you might have observed several times, when our clothes are washed and dried in the sun, okay, you see that after some count of washes, let us say 6 times or 10 times, for example, you are washing something, a t-shirt or something, okay, and if you try to dry it under the sun, after some times of some washes, you see that would be fading away its color. Have you noticed it? Yes, isn't it? Yes, yes, many of you are responding for that, correct. So, if you have noticed that fading away of color occurs, that is because of the sunlight. That fading away of color is more or less like photo bleaching. So, here also our chlorophyll, when they are trying to trap more and more sunlight energy continuously, they might be in a problem of losing their nature of light trapping energy, that is what is given here as photo bleaching. So, in order to avoid that, they have a backup known as shield pigments, that is carotenoids. So, they do that function, and they are of two types, namely carotenes and xanthophylls. When they are gaining the energy and giving it to chlorophyll, that is their shield pigments. So, they are known as light harvesting complex. Each carotene is known as, each carotenoid is known as light harvesting complex. So, carotenes are denoted here as C14H56 is the chemical formula, and you see C40H56 and O2 being the xanthophylls. Okay, that is the reason why we were trying to understand the types of light trapping pigments present in the plant. Okay. Now, we will look into some other details, that is steps involved in the photosynthesis process. So, if you observe, firstly, as we have discussed it, that is light energy absorption is more important, that is done by the various pigments present here. When you see the light energy, that is to be converted into chemical energy. So, absorption is one thing, conversion of that light energy to chemical energy is the second step, followed by the splitting of the water molecule which is taken by the plants using roots. So, you see that is one thing. What is the third step? Can you guess? Okay, I see some of you are dropping here. Let us see what is the third step. Okay, I am sorry, the fourth step. Reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. That is the ultimate step you see here. So, every other step what we have followed so far, we understood the pigments of the chloroplast, everything is because of to produce carbohydrates being the main component of all our discussion, that is the ultimately what is that we are making? We are making glucose. Okay. So, if you observe here, we are taking carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, you know the source, there are so many organisms like you, me, various herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, okay, around here, they are trying to breathing, they are also undergoing the process of respiration. So, they take in oxygen and they give out carbon dioxide. So, that is one such source present in the atmosphere. Apart from that, water is taken by the plants using roots. In the presence of sunlight, chlorophyll trap the energy, and that light energy is converted into chemical energy, using which glucose is formed. So, this being the our component of interest. So, we do not bother these. Oxygen is given out as gas, so does the water. So, they are given out as gas. So, that water is given out as vapor, I mean gas, in the sense we understand that as being the vapor which is not certainly having the liquid state, right. So, that is a vapor. So, our interest is in glucose. So, this one being the main product, these two are known as byproducts. These two are known as byproducts. So, this is how the various steps involved in the process of photosynthesis. So, now we have to understand the mechanism of photosynthesis by using this particular flow chart. So, this flow chart shows us the light reaction and there occurs another reaction known as dark reaction. So, that is what is dark reaction. So, if you observe carefully, we will end up having a good discussion now. So, light reaction, it occurs in the presence of light. Dark reaction definitely not happens in the dark, okay. It happens without the use of light. So, it is dark reaction, okay. So, here the storage of ATP and reducing power of NADPH is used. So, here when the process of photosynthesis is occurring, so we need energy for a reaction, that is one such thing is given by ATP and we have the NADPH, okay, nicotinamide adenine diphosphate. So, that is having H is H plus. So, it has to be reduced using this, and so these are used for reducing. So, storage of ATP and we need this to reduce the component. So, that is what carbohydrates were formed by reducing carbon dioxide, you know that, okay. So, if you observe carefully, dark reaction here is happening. So, here NADPH is reduced by ATP, that is quite different. So, we needed them and here they were used. If you observe, CO2 is converted here, that is all. So, this is the simple mechanism of photosynthesis. Then you see, we have to understand what this thing we are going to read now. Any guesses? Okay, you know, because when the reaction I was showing you, if you observe carefully, I was showing you this. Oh, it is in black, huh? So, yeah, I was showing you this. It is for that reason we are trying to understand this now. Let us move forward. You see that these structures are nothing new to you again. So, it is having several components within itself. This one being the stoma, which is open, and here the case is with this one which is closed. So, why I am showing this is because if you observe carefully, there are so many parts available here. If you observe, this is actually the guard cell, okay. So, these two cells, you know, this cell number 1, cell number 2 are known as guard cells. Of course, just like any other plant cell, you see that this one will be having cytoplasm, vacuole, cell wall and all those things. But look at the shape, it is having a bean shape, each of them, as if the two beans are arranged, right. So, if you observe carefully, as if the two beans are arranged. So, this opening is the stomatal pore. From this opening, you will see that water in the form of gas is given out. So, that is what is happening here. So, this process is actually known as transpiration. So, this is also nothing new to you, you have already learnt. So, that is what is all about transpiration. Now, we have to look into the topic of various factors affecting the photosynthesis process. So, main factor being here is the light, okay. So, when you look at a light, photosynthesis can occur in sunlight, moonlight, of course, even in electric light. It is just the specific band of light required by the plants to perform it. So, here it is sunlight, moonlight, even the electric light. Some of you might be wondering, you may agree moonlight, you may not agree electric light. Okay, I will tell you how that happens. You know, I did my masters in marine biology. There we used to culture some of the algae, okay, very small algae. If we have to culture them, 24/7 we used to give them the light supplied for them, because they are algae, they have chlorophyll, they will make their own food, right. So, there they used to have this, we used to put the electric light, of course, the white color light, it has all the bands required, right. So, using that they used to generate themselves, they used to, you know, increase in the count continuously. Next one is carbon dioxide concentration. how much is the carbon dioxide concentration? More the carbon dioxide, more will be the photosynthesis process. That is why it is simple, right? Directly proportional. More carbon dioxide means more photosynthesis. Then temperature. So, photosynthesis usually not occurs, it does not occur at 0 degree Celsius, but there are some cold region plants perform the photosynthesis at even 35 degree Celsius, and there are some succulents, thick fleshy leaved plants even perform the photosynthesis at 55 degree Celsius. So, that is the difference here, right. When it comes to water, as less than 1% of the total water absorbed by the plant is utilized by photosynthesis, that is something interesting. So, we do not have to bother, we are not giving water to the plants, we are not giving water to the plants means that is a different functioning they are doing, but less than 1% of water they take for photosynthesis. So, water rarely acts as a limiting factor here. So, in water deficient conditions, photosynthesis is found to be decreased. Just a little decrease in the photosynthesis happens when there is a limited amount of water, because this is the reason, just 1% of water which is absorbed by the plant is used for the process of photosynthesis, right. So, if you observe, so we have done with the topics and we are going to recap them, starting with, we were trying to understand the ingestion, generation of energy utilization, which is nothing but the nutrition topic, and then we classified the nutrition into autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition, followed by we explored the labeled structure of chloroplast. We looked at the different pigments of the plant, that is chlorophyll and carotenoid pigments, which help in trapping the light and for the process of photosynthesis, and they trap the light and convert it into chemical energy. So, we looked into the steps involved in the process of photosynthesis, following which we just completed the factors affecting the photosynthesis process. So, hope you understood this particular session. Thank you very much.